Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be telling you about all of the unread Irish books on my shelves. So I am one of the 3 co-hosts for the Irish Readathon. If you don't know what the Irish Readathon is, I will leave all of the information linked down below in the description. But essentially it is a month of celebrating Irish books, of reading more Irish books than you normally would. If you read just one Irish book in the month, you are participating in the Readathon. But every year, I'm a host. I've got to go bigger than that. So I not only try and fulfill all of the reading prompts that we set, but I make all of my reading in March Irish books. And I have been doing this for 7 years now. I emigrated in 2014, so it's coming up to 10 years that I have not lived in Ireland, apart from a bit of an unplanned extended stay during the pandemic, and that was the only time that I was in Ireland for the readathon. So every March I have found this readathon a really great way to connect with a sense of community at home, to celebrate my Irishness, to feel just really connected to that. And while I do read a lot of Irish books throughout the year, I definitely find myself being like a little Irish book squirrel. Like I will keep things thinking, oh, I'll read that for the readathon. I'll save it to March for the readathon. So I have become a squirrel. So I have 16 books to talk to you about today, plus the 4 unread books that are on my main TBR for the readathon. So that's 20 books. There are a couple more books that I want to read for the readathon that I want to pick up. So Disobedient Bodies and Black and Irish. I want to pick up both of those to read this month. So I will definitely be doing that. So my overall Irish books TBR, unless I've missed something off the shelves, I think is 22 books. I'm not going to read all of these books in the month of March, but I definitely will be making a conscious effort to try and really reduce that TBR, knowing full well that throughout the year, in the lead up to the next readathon, I will just start squirreling books away again. Let's start with 3 books by the same author. So I have Last Chance Saloon, Sushi for Beginners, and again, Rachel, all by Marian Keys. So I am currently reading Rachel's Holiday, which is probably Marian Keys's most well-known book. As a general rule, I don't love big books unless they are written by Marian Keys. Marian Keys writes a lot of female-focused and family-focused life stories. So they are really wonderfully detailed portraits of someone's life, often with some level of like turbulence to them. She writes about younger women in their 20s and their 30s, but also women that have more maturity. And because she has this really fantastic conversational writing style that really makes you feel connected to the characters as if you know them, as if they're people in your life, they're really easy reads. So despite them being really chunky books, they're often like over 500 pages. Despite that, it feels like a really quick read. And I don't know how she manages to do it. It's so impressive, but she manages to balance this really accessible, easy storytelling style while also touching on really serious and important topics. So Rachel's Holiday deals very heavily with addiction, but having just only read about 100 pages of it at this stage, it's so easy to read through despite reading about these like heavy subject matters. So I have these 3 on my TBR already. Again, Rachel is a follow-up to Rachel's Holiday that was written much later. Every time I read a Marian Keys book, I just feel like it's such a treat, like it's such a luxury. And she has a huge back catalogue, so I have so many more books to read from her. I could easily have way more of her books on my TBR. I had to really like restrain myself and not buy a couple of them the other day when I saw them. But I'm trying to implement a rule where I can't get another book from the same author if I have 2 of their books unread on my shelves, which means I can't get any more books by Edna O'Brien. So I have 2 of her books on my shelves. I have Girls in Their Married Bliss and The Little Red Chairs. Girls in Their Married Bliss is the 3rd book in the Country Girls series. So I read the first 2 books in that quite a while ago. I think I read them both when I was at university. And this is a series that looks at the lives of these 2 girls that have a really close friendship and how their lives progress together but also apart as they get older, and it charts their friendship as their lives begin to shift. And this 3rd book follows their lives as married women, and I think the title Girls in Their Married Bliss is a bit tongue-in-cheek. I don't think their marriages are particularly enjoyable for them. This is a really short one, so hopefully I should be able to get to it this month. And The Little Red Chairs is something very different to that. So this is a book that is about a faith healer coming to a very kind of rural, isolated part of Ireland. He calls himself a faith healer and creates quite a stir in this community, particularly for one woman who becomes enthralled in this kind of fatal attraction, which has devastating consequences for her. I started reading this for the last readathon and got only 40 pages in, and that was no diss on the book. Like, I was really enjoying the book. I think I put it down for like a week and then just didn't pick it up again. But I was really enjoying the novel, so hopefully I can return to it this month. I also have Homestretch by Graham Norton. I have read 2 or 3 of Graham Norton's books, and I think they're really good. This one is set in 1987, and it is set also in a very small Irish community that is shattered by a terrible accident. A boy called young Connor is one of the only survivors of this accident, but staying amongst the people who are angry and mourning is too much for him to bear, so he decides to flee, taking all of his secrets with him. If you've read Scenes of a Graphic Nature by Caroline O'Donoghue, this kind of sounds a bit like the dad's story from that book. I think Graham Norton does a really fantastic job of depicting small town Ireland, as well as having those mystery elements to the novel. I think he does those really well. And I'm really interested to see how he handles the topic of leaving Ireland, because that's something that I have a lot of thoughts and feelings around, obviously. I do think Graham Norton is just someone that I will read all of his books eventually. I don't necessarily read them like as they come out, but I will always get around to them. Hamet by Maggie O'Farrell. Maggie O'Farrell is from Northern Ireland, and I feel like a lot of people know about this book. It obviously won the Women's Prize for Fiction a few years ago. It has really done the rounds on BookTube. A lot of the Irish books on my TBR often deal directly with Irishness, so it's nice to have something on my TBR that just isn't directly about that. This is set in the 1500s, the late 1500s, in Stratford-upon-Avon, and it is about the death of William Shakespeare's son, Hamet. Everyone I know who has read this raves about it, and this isn't typically the kind of book that I would pick up, but I've heard so many good things about it that I really want to read it and find out what all the fuss is about. The Sea by Iris Murdoch. Iris Murdoch is one of those writers that I don't think a lot of people realise that she's Irish. This was gifted to me a few years ago by Kieran, the lovely Kieran. It's completely gorgeous. Like, look at this. She's beautiful. She's short and dinky, but chunky. I love her. But remember when I said I don't like big books unless they're written by Marian Keys? Aesthetically, yes, I love this, but it also scares me. I think I remember Kieran describing this many years ago as Love Island for old people, and I was like, I'm in, but that show exists now. It's hosted by Davina McCall. I do really want to read this. I do. And I made Kieran read Middlemarch, however many years ago it was, 4 years ago, and I feel like I should read this because I feel like I actually really will enjoy it. Maybe audio is the way to go. Actress by Anne Enright. I'm going to read you the blurb of this one. I know people hate that, but I just feel like this blurb, it nails it, and it does more justice to it than I could. This is a story of Irish theatre legend Katherine Doyle, as written by her daughter Nora. It tells of early stardom in Hollywood, of highs and lows on the stages of Dublin and London's West End. Katherine's life is a grand performance, with young Nora watching from the wings. But this romance between mother and daughter cannot survive Katherine's past or the world's damage. In the declining years of her middle age, Nora's mother commits a senseless crime. Actress is about a daughter's search for the truth, the dark secret in the bright star, and what drove Katherine finally mad. Brilliantly capturing the glamour of post-war America and the shabbiness of 1970s Dublin, Actress is an intensely moving, disturbing novel about mothers and daughters and the men in their lives. A scintillating examination of the corrosive nature of celebrity, it is also a sad and triumphant tale of freedom from bad love and from the avid gaze of the crowd. I find books about celebrity fascinating, particularly famous women and how they are treated in the public eye. I also think parent-child relationships are something that is really fascinating. I've read a couple of Anne Enright books before and thought they were great. I read The Gathering when I was at university, and I still think about that book all of the time. Another author that I've read quite a few books from is Roddy Doyle, and this is Smile. I picked up this copy in a charity shop the same time I picked up a copy of Actress. I suspect it might have been the same person that gave them to this charity shop, but this book is so grubby. Like, why did I buy this? It was a cheap hardback. That's why I bought it, and also because I was squirreling. So this is about an older man named Victor who lives quite a life of solitude, but every night he goes to the same pot between nurse a pint. But one evening his drinking is interrupted when someone sits next to him who knows who he is and seems to remember him from school. Victor is not okay with this. It makes him really uncomfortable. This starts bringing up a lot of buried memories for him, particularly his school experiences and the Christian brothers. One brother in particular bringing up a very painful memory for him. So I'm getting the sense this is one of those books that is going to touch on the very difficult, deep-rooted traumas that there are in Ireland, particularly in relationship to religion, Catholic control, children, etc. And I really associate Roger Doyle's writing with being really, really funny. I first interacted with his writing with his children's books, like The Giggler Treatment, when I was very, very young. And I have read a few of his novels for adults since, but by no means the breadth of his back catalogue. So this is going to be something that's quite different from me with my experiences of his writing. So I'm really intrigued to see what he does with this topic. The last one's Left Alive by Sarah Davis Goff. This is one of those ones that I have put on my Irish Readathon TBR a couple of times and I just haven't got round to it. And then I put it on my Halloween TBR and haven't got round to it and been like, okay, I'll read it in March for the Irish Readathon and I haven't got round to it. Is this finally the year? This is essentially an apocalyptic zombie novel set in rural Ireland. This is another one that is not typically the type of thing I might read. I don't read a lot of apocalyptic kind of stuff. And my thinking was, it being a small town Ireland book, which I read a lot of, might be the way of me gaining entry into that. But I need to read the thing first. The End of the World is a Cul-de-sac by Louise Kennedy. This is a short story collection, and typically I don't really get on with short story collections. I feel like as soon as I kind of get to grips with the situation and the characters and feel connected to them, the story's over. But I read a short story collection recently called Games and Rituals that I really, really loved, and I'm hoping for the same experience with this one when I get around to reading it. I've also heard amazing things about Louise Kennedy's writing. She wrote Trespasses, which everyone apart from me seems to have read. So I'm becoming more open-minded to enjoying short stories, and this could be one that I really love. It is about the secrets people keep and the lies that they tell. So I love secrets and lies in books. I have a couple of young adult books as well. Oh my god, it has just got so dark. Did you notice that? It has just started lashing rain and it's got so dark. I'm so sorry. I have Blood to Poison by Mary Watson. This is a young adult novel. I still have the sticker on it. Like, normally I'm very good. I will take stickers off right away. Oh my god, the shame. I'm gonna read you the blurb of this one as well because it sounds really good. 17-year-old Savannah is cursed. It's a sinister family heirloom, passed down through the bloodlines for hundreds of years, with one woman in every generation destined to die young. The family calls them Hella's Girls, named for their ancestor Hella, the enslaved woman with whom it all began. Hella's Girls are always angry, especially in the months before they die. The anger is bursting from Savannah, at the men who catcall her in the street, at her mother's disingenuous fiancé, even at her own loving family. Each fit of rage is bringing her closer to the edge, and now Savannah has to act to save herself. Or die trying. Because the key to survival lies in the underbelly of Cape Town, where the sinister Vale witches are waiting for just such a girl. That sounds so good. I love books about kind of young women coming into their power in both a kind of like a spiritual sense, but also that being allegorical for them waking up to the injustices around them. Truth Be Told by Sue Divin. This is another young adult book. I read her previous book, Guard Your Heart, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. That was set in Northern Ireland, and this one is as well. It's set in 2019, and it follows two girls who have been brought up in quite different ways. So one of them is living in Derry City, and the other is living in very rural Armagh. And why that is significant is not only the kind of difference in these girls' upbringings, but also that they are on differing sides of the political divide in Northern Ireland. But when these girls come face to face with one another, they realise that they are basically identical. And exploring this leads them to discover far more than they could have ever imagined. I loved Guard Your Heart. I am dying for like a 6-episode miniseries adaptation of that book. I think it would be brilliant. So I really hope I get around to reading this one in March. It's one that I have very high hopes for. And finally, I have 2 books from Katherine Doyle. So I have The Stormkeeper's Island and The Lost Tide Warriors. These are the first 2 books in this magical middle grade series from Katherine Doyle. It's baffling that I've not read this yet. I will absolutely be reading at the very least the first book in this series this month. I love magical middle grade. I love how this series is going to be like set in Ireland and really draw on its Irishness and Irish mythology. So I'm very excited for this series. I am also going to be reading a young adult book from Katherine Doyle this month, but I don't have a physical copy of it because it's not out until September. I am going to be reading The Dagger and the Flame, which is her new romantasy book. Full disclosure, it is published by the place that I work, and I'm putting a lot of time and focus into that book professionally at the minute. And I've read bits of it already, but I haven't read the whole thing from page 1 to the end yet. But yeah, it's a very steamy, spicy romantasy book. So there we have it. They are all of my unread Irish books. As I said, there are 4 more books actually on this list. So if you want to see my main TBR for the readathon, my focus TBR for the readathon, then I will leave that linked in the cards and in the description. If you have any recommendations for me, please do let me know down in the comments, or feel free to join our Discord server where we are talking about all things the Irish Readathon. If you are talking about anything to do with the readathon on your socials, do hashtag it the Irish Readathon so myself and my co-hosts can see it. If you're looking for recommendations, I have a whole playlist of videos recommending Irish books for the readathon, which you can check out. That is it for me today. I hope you're doing well, and I will speak to you in my next video.